All right, and we're live on the Zeall Show, episode 41, where all the shows are unedited, unfiltered, uncensored, and unscripted. Only slightly a little bit of planning, because still want a show that everyone wants to watch, happy to watch. So yeah, welcome to the 41st episode, and we have a very important guest, a very good friend, been in the trenches together for many years. But before that, I want to just have a few messages here. Just let me show you. Yeah. So I have a Linktree link right now, where I have all my different. I don't use it just for links. It's basically all the different information that I think it's important for you, for my viewers. So I have the live streams already up here. So obviously, if you're in the live stream, you'll be seeing this. But I do hope that you guys who's on X can join the Zeall Show community, and to support the show, also buy me a coffee, because do need financial resources for, to keep the shows going. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and as well as have a look at the books that I have written. So this book is particularly relevant today, understanding Bitcoin and why everyone should own it, because we're at the end game of Bitcoin now. Bitcoin is no longer a novelty. It's getting more centralized. And to keep it decentralized, we really need everybody's help in a way, calling for help in a way. Even owning 10, 20, $100 of Bitcoin just to keep at least the price side of things decentralized would be great. And this is what this book is about. Okay, great. So I'm very happy to go to the talk show today. Let me just switch it over. Today we have with me Luis Buenaventura. Oh my gosh, it has really been many years. I think at least.
Yeah, it has been many years. Before the show started, we were trying to like figure out exactly which year it was. I want to say we first met in 2014. Does that track with
Yes,
you?
we met in
So it's about
2014. Yes.
yeah, so 10, 11 years ago, right around the time that I was starting actually. So I guess you might have started a little bit earlier than me. I joined the Bitcoin industry in March of 2014. What about yourself?
June 2013. That was when I was.
Okay,
So
right.
yeah, this part is interesting. I realized there's this whole group of people that starts at every cycle, right?
Yeah.
And then if you hear like Vitalik also said that he got to know about crypto when playing World of
Yeah.
Warcraft. I think there was a
Ah,
whole group of people that was the same, because I was playing that myself, and I
yes. Yes.
got to know it from there. Yeah, but
Yes.
how did you get to know about Bitcoin? What got you in?
Yeah, so I've always been a tech founder. So even from back in my early 20s, I was already kind of trying to do tech startups here in the Philippines, and I was looking for an e-commerce solution. I was building an e-commerce platform at the time, and I was looking for some kind of payment system that didn't involve credit cards. And kind of if you remember back in the early days of Bitcoin, that was one of the kind of the original ideas for Bitcoin, right? It was online payments, uncensorable, accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
So I started to really explore the possibilities of Bitcoin as a payment mechanism.
Oh.
And that's kind of how I first arrived at it. By the time that you and I started talking, I had already come around to the idea that, oh, actually what this might be good for is cross-border payments, remittances, things like that. And that was kind of, I think, the early context that a lot of Bitcoiners from this side of the world were kind of looking at this whole solution from, right? And we were thinking about it in terms of cross-border, because like a lot of our countries have so many migrants, immigrants, things like that, and international payments is a real thing still. Unfortunately, Bitcoin as a mechanism for that turned out to be very challenging.
Yes.
um,
Yes, we
and
were
it,
so excited about it, but we didn't really think about the 10 minutes per second, the number of
yeah,
transactions it can
yeah,
do.
yeah. So yeah, it turns out it was quite hard. But it seems like, 10 years later, so it's now 2024, 2025, and we're still trying to crack that
Yeah.
particular puzzle, right? I mean, it turns out it's actually a lot more complex than we thought. I mean, stablecoins seem to have a shot of becoming that solution, but it's been a decade and we still have yet to really see a substantial crypto solution at scale for the remittances industry. It's
Yeah,
quite
it's
strange.
the problem is, at least from the Singapore side, the sending side of things, it isn't really about the tech. It's about who you're playing with, because at the end of the on ramp and off ramp are the banks. Banks
Yes.
was the most troublesome for us
Yes.
all, in the sense where before they know about crypto, uh, they thought this was very risky, and then a lot
Right.
of the Singapore banks won't open bank accounts. I think you may have seen back then. I made a big fuss on Bloomberg saying that most of the accounts here for crypto exchanges were closed, and
Yeah.
then luckily MES, with the objective mind, I know I would have risked my reputation because I know MES may fight back, our regulator. Uh, we came up with the code of practice, and the banks sort of liked it. And now most of the exchanges have a bank account, but not a USD until Trump came in. Because a lot of them, the correspondent banks would then tell the local banks, if you work with crypto companies, we will not open for you. We will close your correspondent banking facilities. It was insane. Is it
Right.
like that in the Philippines?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And it still continues to be pretty unfriendly to crypto companies in general. There's maybe one or two banks here that are generally more open to crypto, but if you pick from the top three or top five, really, you will not be able to open a bank account if you are a licensed and regulated crypto business, which is kind of
A
ironic, right? I mean,
paradox.
it's like if I'm already licensed and regulated, what more do you want? This is literally
Exactly.
the most that I can do, and they still won't bank you. Me personally, just as a private individual, I've been debanked enough times now that I've kind of given up trying to maintain banking. I don't know. It's just something I've just accepted. Like, yeah, maybe I'll only be ever like partially part of the banking system.
It is very interesting. As we before the show, just 5 minutes before 5 minutes before the show, we were saying about the different generations, right? And
Yeah.
when I tell the younger folks that I have lost my bank account a number of times, they're like,
Yeah.
"Huh? It can actually happen? What did you do? Did you do something criminal?" I said, "No, it's the woes of the early crypto guys in this space."
Yes. Yes. Pretty much. Pretty much. And like honestly, and you know what? Funnily enough, it still happened to me just a couple months ago.
Oh wow,
Just late last year, I got debanked one last time. And
what
I'm like,
happened?
wow, like I might be it's like late stage debanking. I didn't realize it was still happening, but apparently it still can. So there you go, right? It still happens.
Wow. And then we always get so angry when the banks don't tell us the reason, right? But when I went
Yeah.
into the company as the head of compliance, I then understood that if you tell the client, then it's tipping off. It's actually not
Yes.
allowed. Yeah.
Yes,
So
exactly. Right.
it's
So it's a mystery. So they say, "Oh, we regret to inform you that we can no longer continue this banking relationship, although we value your business, blah, blah, blah." But the code there is really like, I mean, obviously, like what else? I'm not doing anything else that is weird. It's just the crypto thing. And I found that the more visible I become as a crypto person here in the Philippines, the more likely it is that we'll run into these types of debanking situations, which is, I guess that's how it'll be, right? So, I don't know. I don't know about what your situation is over there, but like I've really started to depend on things like crypto debit cards,
mm.
as a way to still be able to, spend directly. And then
Yes,
I've been,
still the same. But although Singapore somehow, I think I got lucky where we had a champion within the Singapore's MAS, the regulator here,
Mhm.
really championed the payments. And then at that time, they got DBS to be working with
Mhm.
us, and the chief compliance officer back then, who's still the chief compliance officer now, somehow got let's use the Gen Z word, crypto vibe. Okay, called the
Ah,
crypto vibe. Worked so hard on it, and I didn't understand why DBS would work with us so deeply back then. Now we know. Now they have their own exchange. They have their own crypto services. They actually see this as a business. So back then they
mhm.
were actually learning a lot on how the AML stuff works. So in terms of bank accounts, even today, if I transact with CoinHako, back then, if you write crypto in the definition, you lose your bank account. But
Yeah.
but but now it's fine. But a lot still would try to support crypto. But I think it seems like Philippines is still taking its time in terms of getting banks to
Yeah.
come on.
To be honest, like it is fine on certain levels, right? Like retail trading here in the Philippines, completely fine. OTC trading here in the Philippines, completely fine. But you must limit your banking relationships to like one of a handful, like literally just two or three
Wow.
friendly banks. You can't use the others. So I mean, I guess it is what it is. I don't know. I mean, hopefully it'll open up more. I mean, the we've always followed the US's kind of, they're whatever they're trending towards. That's usually what the Philippine regulators will usually follow. So perhaps we'll see a little bit more openness in the coming years, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean the at least from the money laundering side of things, they're really opening up. Okay, they're really trying to change a lot of the rules. The people that went to jail or got convicted are now getting pardoned. So many of them, right?
Right,
So
right, right.
so somehow it's opening up. At least from the news that I have, it's just going to get definitely going to get better. Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask. I know, as we said, I was working on my startup. You're working on yours, um, and you were saying that remittance or payments was the main thing for you. Were there any
Yep.
pivots before you actually went to the accelerator, or maybe you can talk more about how you got there as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we did so many different things, right? So, but yes, payments was the one that we kind of stuck on for a little bit. Remittances was the one that got the most investor interest, though, and that's kind of how we ended up at the Google Launchpad Accelerator program because we were trying to do remittances, but we did it kind of in the only way that we could figure out that would work at scale, which is that you make crypto an invisible part of the process. So you were
Totally.
not actually teaching migrant workers around the world how to use Bitcoin or crypto or whatever. You were literally just talking to the remittance operators themselves. So you were a
Mm.
business to business solution. You were using cryptocurrency as the settlement mechanism underneath,
Mm,
which
yeah.
was a limited, I would say the benefits were much more limited
Yeah.
because you had to then make sure that the crypto exchange rate was markedly better
Oh, totally.
than
Yes.
whatever fiat exchange rate they were already enjoying. And that turned out to be very challenging because crypto liquidity just wasn't there in many countries, right? So if you were trying to do that, this was like 6, 7 years ago. If you tried to do that in the Middle East back then, you would incur nearly like 2%
Yes.
loss just buying the crypto, and then you'd have to incur it again on the Philippine side when you kind of liquidate into peso or whatever. And it would be less than 2% on the Philippine side, but all told, you're still looking at over 2% total losses. Costs, these are costs to the money transfer operator, which in most cases was too high, right? They were looking at sub 0.5% with fiat rails because they had kind of got it to the point where a lot of their flow was very efficient because they'd been doing it for decades. Um, but with crypto, it was so new, the liquidity was not quite there. Yeah, you were just having to kind of contend with all of these challenges. So that's ultimately how we ended up kind of turning back into a retail trading platform. Much later on, this was like towards the pandemic. We realized that maybe we're not there yet in terms of using crypto as a remittance settlement mechanism. The liquidity is just not enough on the receiving side or in many countries of origin. It's just not enough. However, there is still a burgeoning number of young people who want to get into crypto easily in the most direct way possible. So that's how we ended up kind of becoming more of a retail trading app, which I think is still kind of possibly the strongest use case for crypto, at least now for, in 2024, 2025. It still looks like retail trading might be the thing. I mean, institutions are coming in also. So yeah, it's like we're still back in where we were like 10, 11 years ago, or so, like just trading Bitcoin. We're trading desks essentially, right?
If there was a way that we can give the USB to the younger folks of the lessons that we learned, I think it would be
Oh
better
yeah.
because they are actually
Yeah.
repeating some of the mistakes that
Yeah.
we have been going through, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the Bitcoin payment stuff, man. Like, I thought that we'd already figured out that people don't want to pay with Bitcoin 10 years ago.
Yes.
And I'm still seeing startups here in the Philippines that are trying to push, you know, I mean, to be fair to them, they've got Bitcoin Lightning wallets now. So the payment settlement time is at least faster,
Faster,
right? I mean,
yes.
it happens in seconds. But ultimately, the problem with using Bitcoin as payments is that when you pay for that coffee today, I guarantee you 4 years from now, you will regret paying for that coffee with Bitcoin because the amount of Bitcoin that you paid will probably be worth so much more,
Yes.
right?
That's the
So
that's the thing we've been hiding when we do our startups. We're like, people want to pay with Bitcoin, but we want to keep it ourselves because we know it's gonna go up.
yeah, yeah. So the mechanism itself punishes you for using it, right?
Yes.
Because like you never want to look back, and I think you and I both know how painful it is to look at how much Bitcoin we spent back in 2014 and 2015 just doing
Yes.
demo transactions, right? Where yeah, I'll pretend to buy a coffee with my point zero 0.01 Bitcoin. Haha, that's worth now it's worth $800. So I was like, it's such a waste of money. Or I mean, I shouldn't say it was a waste of money. It had a purpose back then, for sure. I mean, we were doing it for whatever, for
But from the
business use.
value perspective, yeah.
But like long-term value, like God, I wish I hadn't paid for those coffees, right? I wish I just kind of accumulated it.
Yeah, like I taught at General Assembly, some of the students back then, 10 years down, and it said, Anson, thank you for the for teaching me, and here's my $1 Bitcoin that you sent me, well, one Sing dollar worth. I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a very expensive class, 40 of you.
Yeah, see, so that's it, right? I mean, if you had an asset that you believed, if the premise was that you believed that this asset was going to go up in value over time, the last thing you want to do is spend it on little things, right? Because you will be it's directly conflicting with your core belief.
Yes.
So Bitcoin as payments, it's not it doesn't work in my mind. I think stablecoin, like connecting stablecoins to a payment mechanism makes a hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel that's probably where we'll end up. You know how Stripe had bought so I've forgotten the name of the company they had bought, but that was kind of like their first move towards, integrating stable coins into their payment gateways.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's a lot of companies that are already kind of waking up to this idea. And I think that that's got way more legs than kind of a more Bitcoin oriented payment system.
Yes, and I'm actually working with some policymakers around the world to create a model law for stablecoins. And the
Mm.
whole aim for that is to make sure, even to the tax department, that they can pay with stablecoins. And that way, you don't need the conversion, and that way, you can do it cross border. So we hope to have this through one of the large organizations, can't say who, but but the US side already knows about this as well. So we're actually working with them to get this stablecoins law globally compatible.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
that's great.
stablecoins is the main use case, not with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I don't even know what other crypto you would use other than stable coins, right? I mean, maybe like even I was thinking about it, like so technically PAX G and XAUT, so these are the gold pegged stables. I wouldn't use that either because like gold is going up, gold is at an all-time high right now, right? So I wouldn't want to pay with that. So basically, I just want to pay with fiat pegged coins because that's the one thing that I believe the least about. Like I'm happy to spend it. It's fine. Yeah, I'll just spend my dollars. I don't mind. I don't mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, like all the different stables around the world can connect with each other in a much more
Yeah.
smoother way rather than just going to exchanges to buy. Somehow the banks can also touch it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and then as entrepreneurs, we know where the trend is, but we're always
Hmm.
early.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes super early, right?
Yeah, it's
Like
super
way
early.
too early.
That's why I really admire guys like Elon, that they have the
Yep.
vision, they can have
Yep.
the grit to know that if
Yep.
they're going to be early and stay there, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah. Yeah.
Tesla's old days, it's no one's gonna, like even SpaceX. back then, no one would really think that it's possible for a private enterprise to actually send rockets out. But as entrepreneurs, I can also feel him that we're always early, but somehow he's been able to go through that grid. That grid,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not everyone has that.
Yeah. It's like you're stubborn, right? You don't want to let go of the belief that you're that what you're doing is going to matter down the road. And for a lot of times, for a lot of founders, it's either you run out of that confidence or you run out of money, whichever comes first.
Yes. I think usually it's money.
Yeah. I mean, not everyone is Elon Musk, I
Yes,
guess.
exactly. So what are you in terms of what you're doing now? Is there anything that you did before that links to GCash? What does
Oh yeah.
GCash do?
Well, so I guess if you wanted to like just take if you wanted to take the long view about everything that I've believed in with crypto, it's always that I first recognized that Filipinos and every emerging economy really needs an alternative financial system because for all intents and purposes our home financial system has already kind of failed us, in the sense that, every decade the Philippine peso loses 25% against the US dollar, for example. And that's just like one of it. And, we've got like a very regular 4 to 6% inflation year on year. All of these things, right? Um, Everything is more expensive than when I was kind of in my 20s, when I was just kind of starting in the startup scene. And I believe that cryptocurrencies was an alternative that was worth fighting for and pursuing and all of that stuff. And that is a function more of education than technology. The technology eventually caught up, right? You can buy, as a Filipino, you can buy cryptocurrency fairly easily now, as long as it's like small amounts, right? Not exceeding like, not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, but most Filipinos don't have that kind of money anyway. If we're talking like in the hundreds of dollars, super easy to buy crypto right now. And I joined GCash because GCash is the single largest bridge to Filipinos.
Oh,
GCash is the leading mobile wallet in the country. It has 90% market penetration.
wow.
So it's basically like you will have a harder time finding a Filipino who doesn't have GCash
Wow, but
than
they are
finding
like an
one.
incumbent. Do they have? So what got them crossing the bridge towards crypto? Usually, you become comfortable and stuff.
Yeah. Well, so GCash is a super app. So you can look at it not just as a mobile wallet, but also as a marketplace for all sorts of financial services. You can buy stocks there. You can there's savings bank deposits. There's funds. There's bonds, stuff like that, right? And crypto is just one of them. So within the GCash super app, there is a little icon called GCrypto that I run, and basically every Filipino who has GCash also has the a gateway into crypto directly via that app, that GCrypto app. They can whip it up and buy Bitcoin in, I don't know, a minute, right? Because we're using the same fully verified KYC status of your GCash customer user profile. You can kind of use it there as well. So yeah, it's instant. You don't even have to install anything. So in my mind, the job becomes not a job of customer acquisition, which was very expensive if you're a startup founder. That's one of the most expensive things that you can, the highest cost that you can incur. The job is now customer education.
Yeah.
It's just purely customer education. What is this Bitcoin crap anyway, and why do I need to care, right? And I've been very lucky because I kind of joined at the point where they were really looking for direction for GCrypto. And we've managed to steer it in such a way that, we've grown our user base by, I think, like 300% last year. We've grown our volumes by 600% last year. So we're doing well. And I feel like I just keep doing that, right? Keep doing customer education, like do the meetups. Like it was kind of my idea to start inviting the customers
Oh,
directly into the Gcash headquarters, so they could
wow.
really humanizes the company.
Yep.
And we do these meetups where we just do the kind of Bitcoin 101s and things like that. And I really feel like this is where the work needs to happen, at least on the retail level, right? Because the Philippines is a very, very low income country. We're kind of in many ways the very opposite of Singapore, because Singapore is few users, just several million people, but they're all big ticket spenders, right? They have a lot of disposable income. The Philippines is the reverse. We have 110 million people, but the ticket sizes are tiny. So I need to onboard, I don't know, tens of millions of Filipinos just to earn the same amount as a system that was kind of based in Singapore, for example, which is, fine. That's the job. So yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's when I worked at DTC back then. It was exactly what you're saying. So because there's a few of them that want to transact crypto in a very big way, each one of them
Yep.
will have a relationship manager that we assign to them. It's
Right.
basically like a bank to walk them through, and then
Yep.
most of the customer profile would be they don't know about crypto. Unlike
Yep.
your side where people will want to learn and do it themselves, these
Yeah.
guys don't want to touch. They have enough money, so someone has to do it with or
Right.
for them. It's a
Right.
very
Right. Right.
very
Yeah.
different market.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
so
very charmed
interesting.
life.
Do you have so does Gcash or I mean GCrypto also have stable coins as well?
Yeah. So we've got like the top 30, top 40 cryptos. So like other than Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, BNB, the stuff that you expect. We also have USDT, USDC, PaxG, stuff like that. So basically, you can get exposure to dollars or gold or crypto through that single entry point, which
So
is fairly straightforward.
but through that system, do
Mm-hmm.
do you see any of the users using crypto to do remittance through GCrypto? And is it any cheaper, or they somehow been able to, as in the cost doesn't really change that much?
I've definitely observed users. So we have these different cohorts of users, and one of those cohorts uses stablecoins almost exclusively. They don't even touch
Oh.
Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. So you can infer their activities based on that, right? So either they've got USDT coming in, or they're just buying USDT and then sending it out. Um, and you can kind of infer what types of user they are based on kind of that activity, because the fact that they've never touched Bitcoin at all indicates to me that they are using this stuff as value transfer, maybe for payments, cross border, things like that. And whether or not the economics make sense to them, I mean, I suppose it does, because they continue to use it, right? And the volume is growing. So I think that people are naturally finding uses for this stuff, regardless of whether we advocate for it or not. Although in my mind, I think I want to be the one who tries to show the people what the possibilities are, right? But it turns out some people are organically discovering these use cases already for themselves.
Oh, but okay, so it's not still not like a main use case. It's mostly still for trading, keeping, and so on for under
Yeah, I
Gcash.
would say like the majority, so like 50-60% of the customer base are holding the majors, right? So yeah, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. XRP is another one that's super popular here in the Philippines for God knows what reason. And then yeah, so I would say maybe the stable coin only people are a much smaller cohort, but we're looking at them very closely, because if you are a stablecoin user, your volume doesn't necessarily change regardless of what the market conditions are.
Yep.
So for us as the business, it makes sense to cultivate this demographic, because we know that they'll stick around, right? The problem with the people who are betting on Bitcoin is they tend to hibernate, right? And you and I both
Yes,
know
up
this.
and down. Then
During
when down cycles, they're gone.
Yes, exactly, right? And they'll suddenly all wake up at the same time during the next peak, right? So that's hard to build a business around, because the distance of time between those valleys and those peaks could be like a year, sometimes longer than a year. So what I'm looking for is some kind of bedrock customer that will allow us to maintain a certain amount of revenue and keep us alive, um, for as long as when we're in these winter kind of months. I mean, I'm not saying that we're already in a winter. Like, this is not a bear market. We're just kind of in a mid bull dip right now. But yeah, it's the kind of thing that you're constantly looking for, right? Because if you are constantly just looking at the casual traders, those guys scare off so easily,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And during bear markets, they're totally gone. But speaking of that,
Yes.
we were saying that there are now users that only touch stables without Bitcoin. And then
Yeah.
I think before the show, I was saying that I was at a conference, speaking at a conference, and when I asked Does anyone know who Satoshi is? There was only one hand up. When I told you that, do you want to
Yes,
explain what you were feeling when I said that?
it's just I there was like a deep disappointment, a deep almost offended, I guess, by the fact that's like talking to a crowd of Americans and them not knowing who George Washington is,
Oh
right?
yeah,
It's like
it's true.
what in
Yes.
the world what in the world is going on? But maybe now that I think about it a little bit more, perhaps we have finally entered a phase where the crypto industry is large enough that even the founders have become kind of not as critical
Yep.
to the to the knowledge of the these newer adopters that are just kind of like, okay, yeah, I just want to get into this thing for this one thing that I'm super into. I don't know, stable coins maybe, or God help us, meme coins. And I guess in neither case is Satoshi Nakamoto really relevant. But yeah, it makes me feel sad that they don't even. Cause come on, man, at least know who. At least find out who Satoshi is. He did kind of like kind of out of his brain that all of this stuff came from, right? So yeah, I don't know. Read a blog or something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
But then, yeah, so I felt the same. But then when I started calming down, it basically gave me the insight that Bitcoin has finally become the most decentralized asset
Yes.
because even if Satoshi does come back, really no one cares now. And that is the
Mm,
biggest problem with the other cryptos, like with Ethereum or even with Solana. There's
yeah.
still the even though they don't have full control, there is still the influential risk of the key people there. If they leave, the things go
Yes.
wrong, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's super true. And I guess that we have found that to varying degrees of impact, right? Depending on kind of how big the crypto is. I mean, like, so for example, if Vitalik disappeared, for example, I'm pretty sure that would be pretty nasty for the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yeah.
But I think I can come up with maybe just exactly one example where the crypto survived even after the founder left. Not sorry, not founder, but one of the key figures, right? So Fluffy Pony from Monero, when he stepped back, he was no longer he stepped away from the Monero project.
Yeah.
Um, Monero continues to be pretty good. Unfortunately, it is probably one of the hardest cryptos to acquire because it is very unfriendly to regulators because of its nature. It's a deep privacy coin. But yeah, it seems to have
Interesting.
survived even after the founder left. Yeah.
Yeah. So with things changing and now that you say it, Monero and Zcash may come back
Yeah.
because now US is really focused on everything privacy now.
Yeah.
They delisted as a sanctioned entity or Tornado Cash. Tornado Cash is
Yeah.
gone now,
Right.
right? They are
Yeah.
now legal. Maybe
Yeah.
this will come back, but somehow no one's been talking about this right now.
Yeah, so I noticed on crypto Twitter that Monero was starting to, show up a little bit more
Oh,
recently, just in the last couple of weeks. And then Zuko, the Zcash founder, started to really pop up again on my feed, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can see where this is going. It's because yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. The privacy coins have found their day in the sun again
yes.
because of the way that the US has kind of opened up, which is very interesting.
Yes, because um, like after being in the previous company in terms of compliance, I realized a lot of the things that we're doing is exactly what Brian Armstrong was saying. There's so much cost on compliance, yet at the
Yes.
same time, it's actually not that effective, right?
Right.
So, like for
Yeah.
example, the little Kim Jong Un was able to steal 1.5 billion dollars, right?
Yeah.
And no one has been able to recover even a single cent of that. And then
Yeah.
it's just left in the sun. But small customers have to go through the same sort of cost to do all the KYC and that. So I
Yeah.
voiced it out on LinkedIn. I know MES has looked at this. I hope things change because it's very costly. It's very
Yeah.
costly.
Yeah. Actually, I'll go one step further with your analysis. I totally agree, by the way. I'll go one step further. In many cases, it is actually anti emerging market, because
Hmm.
there's a lot of cost of compliance that are fixed costs, meaning the cost of a sanctions screening kind of it doesn't go down by in scale all that much, right? You're still going to incur that cost regardless. But I need let's do that comparison again, right? I need tens of millions of customers in order to be a profitable company. a Singaporean-based crypto platform might only need 1 million customers or 2 million customers because each customer is doing so much volume on their own, but my volume is way low for every customer. That means that my sanction screening costs, my PEP screening costs, all of these compliance stuff, it's through the roof,
Yes.
right? And it takes so much longer for me to be profitable because I need to do it on 10x the number of humans that a more industrialized country would need, right? So it's like compliance hurts emerging economies more than it does industrialized countries, I think, because it stifles adoption in kind of very invisible ways. It makes it super expensive for companies like us to be profitable. It makes it very hard for us to, continue to offer a service that is at par with kind of what we would consider like world class or something because it's so expensive.
I can give you a real example. So, for example, Myanmar is in the sanction list.
Yep.
Bhutan is also in the sanction list. I have no idea why.
Huh.
Actually,
Wow.
they were saying that there was some cleansing in the 90s, and therefore they still stay there. So it's become a very subjective sort of list. So
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
So for with the Myanmar, there was when I was the head of compliance back then, I had to follow rules. Follow rules meaning that because if MAS does an inspection, if I don't follow my rules, I'm the one that gets in trouble. But
Mm-hmm.
because we had a contract worker in Myanmar, and our
Mm-hmm.
CEO wants uh, everyone to use the app, I
Yeah.
had to say no because it's in the sanction list. Because if they do it through crypto, then we are
Yeah.
violating against the sanction rules of Financial Action Task Force and all that. I'm like,
Yeah.
so that's why even back then, because as an entrepreneur and as a compliance person, I'm really tearing my head out. I said, this is ridiculous that I have to
Yeah.
say no to this because if I say yes to this, I cannot bear all the
Yeah.
responsibilities. Right? It
Yeah.
is
Oh my
insane.
God.
So that's the cost is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was your own employee? Is that what you
Yes,
were saying?
exactly. The contract worker, yes. Yeah, because it's in the list. I
That's
cannot.
horrible.
Yeah, it is so horrible. Yeah.
Oh man.
So, it's great to know that. I didn't know that GCash was really that huge, and you have crypto in there. So yeah.
Mhm.
So I want to also then go to the next point in terms of the Bitcoin reserves and all that,
Mhm.
because we were talking about how Bitcoin now, rather than being for payments, is actually good for a store of value. Now it's really a store of value, right? So that it can appreciate just like
Yep.
gold, but at the same time, things are getting more centralized. How do you feel
Yes.
about what's going on right now?
Well, I mean, I think that it was always going to have to centralize somewhat in order to hit. Like, if you were going to talk about real global adoption, like, where else was it going to go? It was going to have to go in this direction at some stage. But, the good news is that retail, people like you and me, individual citizens, we had a good 10-year head start.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, if you didn't accumulate, that's still kind of on you, man. Like, like you already had 10 years to do it. So in my case, like I mean, obviously I'm just being partially humorous here. I want as many people as possible to accumulate Bitcoin if they can. But they're going to end up in an entry price point that might not be so wonderful, right? I mean, although to be fair, we are kind of in a market dip right now. So I don't know, it's like 20% down from the all-time high. So if this might be the moment where you can finally get in. I don't know. Um, I don't
Yeah.
know, but like we all we gotta make our own choices about these things, right? And I do think that the strategic Bitcoin reserve is the first step by a major country to start acquiring this stuff. I guess to a certain extent, the U.S. already has quite a lot of Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Because it was from seizure, so they already had it. They're just kind of relabeling it into their national reserve. Countries like the Philippines has no Bitcoin. We have no Bitcoin anywhere. We would actually have to buy it on the open market. And I don't know how many years away that is for us, but I mean, I think there was like a list of about a dozen countries now that are kind of looking into some sort of national Bitcoin reserve. So I guess we'll be on that list at some stage. And that's all gonna happen at some like that's what global adoption looks like. So
True.
yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, this is actually what the whole Bitcoin or crypto Bitcoin ecosystem wish for is
yeah,
mainstream. Now you have it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and now it's really like every man for himself. If you want to actually have your own Bitcoin stash, you got to go out there and buy it, even if it is, 80, what is it, $83,000 or something
Yeah.
right now. It's like, I mean, to be fair, between you and me, like this is a ridiculous amount. Like I am not entirely sure that this price is real. Like when we broke 100,000, I was like, did that really happen? It's like it's crazy.
Well, as long as Michael Saylor keeps pushing it and he has the narrative,
Yeah,
you never
yeah,
know,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. The dude is amazing at buying at the top, is he not?
Yeah.
Buying at the top.
Relentless. Yes, totally. Yeah, because my biggest worry, I mean, there's nothing that I can worry about, but um, is that the exchanges one day will reach to a
Yeah.
point where you can't retrieve or withdraw Bitcoin. It will only be for trading. Like some of the Hong
Okay.
Kong exchanges, the ones that have licenses already, you
Yeah.
can only trade Bitcoin, put in Hong Kong dollars, and it only come out in Hong Kong dollars. And it's going to
Ah,
be at that point soon where it's like gold. Like you can't actually take out gold.
right.
A lot of them is just trading on the price. So
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's an angle I hadn't really considered. I guess I was still kind of anticipating that, to a certain extent, the Binances of the world will always let us withdraw our Bitcoin. But I guess you're talking more about the TradFi exchanges
oh
that
no,
are
even the
Mhm.
exchanges today. Oh, okay, yes. I mean, but Binance has still a lot of reserves.
Mhm.
I so oh now I have another angle where all these large, big exchanges they may be safe,
Yeah.
but new ones can't really come in. They won't even have the reserves. They'll be trading on some sort of
Yeah.
derivative. They won't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
enough supply.
Right, you're right. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's gonna be a very exciting time to just kind of see how the industry shapes itself around this stuff. Like, I don't know. I don't have a great answer for this, but I do think that, if Binance and Bybit, kind of the big exchanges like that, the OKXs, I guess Coinbase also, if they stick around longer, they'll eventually kind of global finance will kind of start to accumulate around them, around those brands, assuming that Bitcoin becomes like a real global reserve. They're certainly on the way towards it. We're still mm, maybe a generation away. I don't really know, but we will see more and more of these guys dominate, I think. But yeah, you're right. A younger exchange, I'm not sure how you get in right now. It's
Yeah,
I
so
don't
there
know.
will only be left the crypto magnificent seven, where only
Yeah,
the top
a
exchanges
Mag
will
7. You're
dominate.
right. A Mag 7 for crypto exchanges. That's funny. Actually, wait, sorry. Let me provide a counter argument to the thing that we just said. I realized that there's an angle here that we hadn't considered. Pump.fun is an example of a young exchange that made
True.
massive waves last year. To the extent where, its growth rate was so fast and so sharp that a lot of people couldn't believe it, right? I mean, granted, it's not doing so well now, but there is still a way. You just got to be crazy, I guess.
It's you're right. Like wow, the meme coin phase really got my head scratching.
Yep,
Right, like
yep,
where
yep,
I know the meme coins is supposed to be like Dogecoin, for example.
yep.
Elon went into the office and then now created Doge. It links to
Mm-hmm.
Doge. Okay, so the Doge price
Yeah,
goes up. But
yeah.
my question is, who are these guys? Who are they? Like, why are they buying this? Literally, they're still pumping numbers. Like, how does the meme coin ecosystem work? Like,
I
like,
think Yeah, yeah. I mean, it feels abstract to me. Like I tried a little bit just to kind of get a sense of how people are kind of moving around in it. So that means I dipped into the Solana meme coin ecosystem a couple months back just to kind of get a sense of it, right? And to me, it feels very nihilistic. There is this like I feel like their belief is that um, you know, everything in Bitcoin, everything in crypto is just a narrative anyway. So if everything is just narrative, then I will just follow the narrative that has the sharpest
yep,
uptrend and then sell at the top, right? So that's kind of it feels very fatalistic. I don't like that mindset because it's insulting to everyone who's trying to build something
yep,
meaningful, right? Like it's not all narratives. I will agree that narratives are very powerful, but there is some underlying creative construction going on, that narrative is actually amplifying. In the case of meme coins, there's nothing, right? It's all narrative. It's all just memes, and so I think that it was deeply wrong to embrace the idea that everything is just narrative.
Yes.
And I think that what we're seeing now is that, it's all kind of falling apart. I think Pump.Fund's volume is down like 90%, 95% or something like that. And I think that that was inevitable because, eventually people run out of money. And it seems like there was so much insider trading in these kind of meme coin launches, as we saw kind of revealed during the Libra controversy a month ago. There was so much insider trading that it was not really a casino you could even really realistically win. Um, so really,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We just sank money into it,
So
I guess.
I was about to say that maybe Bitcoin is also a narrative coin, but it's not because there's a 21 million. There is fixed supply. There's actually something that you can go one step further to say there is something that they're doing. But these meme coins, unlimited
Yeah,
supply, right?
yeah,
There's nothing that they're trying to do. It's only just a link to a story or link to a person. So I'm
yeah.
happy that phase is over, but somehow
Mhm.
every new pump, as we say, they are coming back. So,
Yeah.
like fart coin is
Yeah.
coming back again.
Yeah. Oh my God, really? Jeez, I wasn't tracking it, but like,
Yeah,
okay. I
but
mean, they do say that hot air only rises, right? So I guess
oh, that's
that's
that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, yeah, yeah. So we talked about the strategic Bitcoin reserves, and then
Yeah,
MicroStrategy has been pushing for corporate treasury, right? Like for the different
yeah,
companies, and a lot
yeah,
of them are doing the same strategy as him, where especially for listed companies are very privileged because they can sell stock and so on. And then I've
right.
also linked back to how the cycles that we have, every every Bitcoin cycle, let's say Bitcoin cycle, it grows bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
2014, when the bear market happened,
Yep.
it then affected all the Bitcoin OGs, I would then say.
Mm.
Okay, and then
Yeah.
2018, it was then the ICOs, the crypto
Yep.
market became big, and then it faltered. 2022 was the private investment markets, including the
Yeah.
likes of Temasek,
Yeah.
Sequoia, they're all getting affected. And then
Yeah.
my prediction before all these strategic Bitcoin reserves came in is that the next one will be public markets. Oh
Right.
my God,
Yeah.
this is becoming true. What's
Yeah.
your thoughts on this?
Yeah. I mean, I actually, so my angle on this is that every cycle has a sacrificial lamb.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, that, like there's always like someone. So like the previous one was FTX. The 2014 was Mount Gox. In the middle there was like the 2017 2018 cycle. There was a whole bunch of lesser known exchanges that all kind of bit the dust. Coincheck, I think, in
Oh,
Japan was
yes.
the big collapse. But there were a number of them, and I think that maybe we don't know. So a couple of weeks ago, I thought that the sacrificial lamb for this cycle was Bybit because of the
Mm.
because of the hack, right? But it turns out they've survived it, and good on them that they managed to somehow survive. Or I guess maybe that story is still being told, no, right? So they're in recovery right now, but they survived like a $1.5 billion loss. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
and the founder said that he will pay for all that. I'm like, okay,
it's
billionaire.
like,
Now I know.
dang. Yeah, I know. Like, dang, dude, that's a. I mean, I can't think of a bigger flex.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I mean, when
so
Binance was hacked, it was like a SAFU fund, right? You actually, yeah, this
right,
type of fund. This one is
right.
I'm paying it from out of my pocket.
That's crazy. That's a move, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. And I find that it's all so I don't know who the sacrificial lamb for this cycle is going to be. There usually is one. I really, really hope it's not going to be MicroStrategy.
Oh
Because
yeah.
they're really like they're so aggressive. It's usually the sacrificial lamb tends to be the one that is most aggressive during that cycle. And like we saw it with FTX, right? FTX and 3AC and Celsius, they were all super hyper aggressive during that cycle, and they all kind of collapsed one at a time towards the end of that year. And I guess in the Mount Gox days, yeah, I mean Mount Gox was basically the most visible exchange in the world at the time. So yeah, so
You,
I really hope it's not strategy. It's not MicroStrategy for this one. I'm a little scared about that possibility.
yeah, because I was going through the whole FTX DPEG, watching the price, And we
Yeah.
we all know how Luna works, right? Luna and
Yeah.
UST was
Yep.
basically a inverse sort of demand. But
Yep.
then at that point, what happened was Luna was printing a lot. UST was coming down. There
Yep.
was no way, all right? There was no way to save it already. I'm worried
Yes.
that it's sort of like a deja vu for MicroStrategy. If there was a
Yeah.
market crash that happens, and that they're
Yep.
worried that the MicroStrategy price doesn't work out, they would start
Yep.
playing with their shares. Shares go
Yeah.
down, Bitcoin goes down. I don't know what happens then. It's
Yeah.
actually quite scary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think that that is possibly the biggest systemic risk that
Yeah.
presents itself right now. The thing about Michael Saylor is if you've read his biography, he's pretty renowned for taking these incredibly risky positions, right? I
Yeah.
mean, back in the early 2000s, this is not the first time he's done something as ambitious as this. Like back in the early 2000s, he lost billions of dollars. I think in like like was it a 24-hour drop or something like that?
Wow.
So it's like so he's a real risk taker. And granted, his risks so far have managed to pay off because the Bitcoin price keeps going up. But yeah, in a protracted bear cycle, I don't know what happens to strategy. And yeah, again, I am hoping that we can get away this time with maybe a smaller sacrificial lamb. But if it's MicroStrategy, wow, you are gonna see. You know how people say, I can't imagine ever seeing a $30,000 Bitcoin anymore. Like, dude, you should be careful what you wish for. Like, really,
Yeah, yeah.
really, you need to be careful because, like, you know,
Yeah, it's not only him, like, because he's selling his strategy to everyone, and
yes,
everyone's copying his strategy. So if one
yes,
falls, right, then
yeah,
even though they're not linked, it's sort of like a
yeah,
domino effect. Yeah,
yes,
this is what I'm worrying about because he's not selling that about his company. He's asking everyone to corporate treasury to do the same.
yeah,
But at the same time, you have the governments, or at least the U.S. government, really now thinking about selling gold. So
yep.
wow, the narrative for Bitcoin is coming. But like you said, 100,000 for Bitcoin was a very big wow. What does a million look like? When
Yeah.
it reaches a
I
million, what do you feel?
I mean, I am gonna deeply, deeply regret all of those coffees I bought in 2014 with Bitcoin. Like, oh my God, like I hate myself. I will hate myself so much. But I again, the way I justify those decisions was, we were working towards proving that Bitcoin was even worth anyone's time or attention back then, and we had to spend it in order to prove to people that it is money. It is money. It has tangible, it can buy tangible things. And that was kind of the whole point of it, right? That's why we were kind of doing all of these demonstrations and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, fine. I guess you could argue that if there were not enough people like us from back then who worked to prove that Bitcoin was actually worth something, then we would never have gotten to this point. So,
Very
okay,
true.
great. Sure, but like I still wish I'd held on to it a little bit longer, I guess.
Yeah, man. I mean, not a lot of people can actually hold like when I first started. Obviously, some of the investments went into CoinPip as well, into my
Yeah.
old startup, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take credit like you that we all push the space
Yeah.
together. But
Yeah.
speaking of that, like for you, was there any single time that you thought, even during bear markets, that I'm not going to be in the crypto space? Context is that I've seen some people leave, not come
Mm.
back. I've seen some people leave and then suddenly come back, but they usually come back at the top, so they only stay around
Mm.
for a few months and then they go.
Mm.
What what
Yeah.
what is it that gets you to stay, or like you're
Yeah.
living and breathing it and so on?
Yeah. I mean, I guess to a certain extent, I don't feel like I have a choice anymore.
Very
I feel
similar.
trapped. I don't know. I guess it's because I guess that the ecosystem and the industry and the community has taken care of me enough that I feel like I should continue to give back to it. It feels like a
Mm,
very mutual, very reciprocal kind of relationship. So, and also the longer that you stay in crypto, the longer that you keep yourself visible, and the longer that you can keep contributing, the more valuable you become
Yes.
within the community, right? So there is a real reason for you to stick it out. And you're very correct that, there's not a lot of us left from the batch of 2013, 2014, right? There's quite a lot have either, moved off to other things, maybe they're working elsewhere, maybe they've moved to other industries entirely. Or maybe they're retired. Actually,
Maybe
for quite a
retired is
few,
another one. Yes.
yeah, quite a few of my friends from 2013, 2014 have really just like, like, I don't want to work anymore. Why do I need to work?
Yeah.
Bitcoin is a 6-digit currency now.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
just gonna retire. And that is completely fine. I respect that also, right? I mean, use your time for whatever you find valuable to yourself. That's great. In my case, I want to continue like pushing this stuff as far as it will go. And I don't really know where it will end, to be honest. Like maybe this journey just keeps going, right? I've still got a good 90 plus million Filipinos I want to reach with this stuff. So I've still got quite a long journey ahead of me, I think. But for some people, maybe their journey doesn't have to go all the way. Maybe they can just, take a like step away from it, right? That's completely fine.
That's wow. Okay, really got me thinking because that's quite interesting. Because I wanted to get out a little bit. There was a time that I wanted to, which was during the
Mhm.
bear market, but it kept pulling me back. And
Mm.
and then one of my mentors told me before he passed away, he said, Anson, your perceived value is very strong in policy. No matter how much you don't like it, I know you keep
Mm.
asking yourself every day why you're in it. Okay, you are very strong in it, and
Okay.
I really took that to heart and realized people actually see that. So I also just leaned in.
Yeah.
So even things like helping on the stablecoins policy. Uh,
Right.
as you know, I was also doing a lot of the actually still ongoing a lot of the international conferences on crypto.
Yep.
Even though I still ask every day, but yeah, you're right. I'm just my case. I'm really just leaning in. It seems like if I can really help out to get the policies correct everywhere, so be it.
Yeah, and you know what? Like we're also kind of benefiting from the fact that we look at all of these new tools. We enjoy so many new tools,
Yeah.
right? That like I'll give you a very specific example. So, we're coming up to the point where I think that an all-time high, a new all-time high might actually happen. I guess I'm preempting one of your. There's always a question about how high I think the Bitcoin price is going to be at the end of the year, but I'll preempt this somewhat. I think that there will still be another all-time high sometime this year. So I'll say that. But there used to be a time where the only way people like you and I could take advantage of that is by selling a little at the top,
Yep.
right? You sell a little at the top, you scalp a little bit of your Bitcoin savings, and then kind of enjoy some of your profit, right? That's the general idea. Now you don't even have to do that anymore. All you have to do now is borrow against your Bitcoin. And you can do it in a decentralized way if you wanted, right? You could stick your Bitcoin as a wrapped token on Aave and then borrow USDT against it.
Yes.
And the borrow rate is 4 to 5%, depending on how much capital is sloshing around in there. That's a pretty good way to do it. Like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. So at least the Bitcoin is still kind of somewhat in my possession. I'll just pay it down. I mean, we're still earning, kind of regular incomes to a certain extent.
Yep.
So I can pay down the loan. I never have to let go of the Bitcoin. So in a way, we could just keep doing that indefinitely. And I intend to do that sometime this year, because well, mostly just to kind of prove the point, but also because I think your job now is to not let go of your Bitcoin for as long as
Yes.
possible.
At any cost. No.
At any
No.
cost.
Really
Yeah.
hodl it. Actually, yes.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So yeah, borrow against it. Don't sell it. And I think that's probably the move now, right?
Yeah. So yeah. So wow. 10 years has really come a long way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really feel like there's a gap in terms of how the young people, if they learn from us, but it's exactly like our parents. Our parents would say that you should learn from us and so that you won't hurt yourself so much. But we can't. You have to go through that. Everyone has to go
Yeah.
through that phase. But so there's
Yes.
always gonna be a, uh, how do you say, like a Venn diagram where it always overlaps, right? So, but
Right.
for you, what is the still the one thing missing in this ecosystem that you may want to see, may want to see happen?
Ah, Honestly, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot of things that are still missing, but I'll go with the common thing I have noticed with Gen Z or whatever you call this generation of the 20 somethings, right now. I think there is a distinct lack of patience.
Mm.
I think that and to a certain extent that's not their fault. It's the fact that everything else has been tuned around them by capitalistic forces to give them instant gratification, right? So no one knows how to run a Google search anymore. They expect to be able
Yes.
to just talk to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will summarize its findings for
Yeah.
them, right? And that's okay, fine. That I guess that's okay. Um, but when it comes to things like wealth growth, wealth accumulation, there's just zero patience,
You're right.
right? They would rather bet on a 100x gain where they only have 0.1% chance of actually hitting it, um, than just put their money into something that will grow steadily at, like, I don't know, whatever, 10, 15, 20% per annum or whatever. Like, there's this distinct lack of not being able to wait for stuff. And I keep saying that. So my team in GCash are mostly kind of in that age range. So I am, and then, yeah, so I'm nearly twice their age, and I will usually kind of just remind them over and over again that, Bitcoin is not a get rich quick scheme. In many cases, it's actually a get rich slow scheme,
Yeah.
because it takes a while to kind of make dividends for you, but it will make dividends for you. Whereas with the stuff that you guys are betting on, the Solana meme coins, or leveraged futures, which is a big favorite in amongst the office, right? So, like, 25, 50x margins on some derivatives, whatever. Um, that could turn your money into zero, which is, I'm not sure that's what you should be aiming for. Those trade-offs should not be acceptable to you. Now that being said, I'm happy for you to play around with it with, like, small amounts of your capital. If you're only playing or at 10% of your capital, then go crazy with it, right? That's fine. But, like, for the big chunk of your capital, you should be looking for things that are growing stably, or kind of, not even if it's not stable, right? Even if it's like volatile. Bitcoin is the last thing I would call stable, but, like, at least the growth of it over time has been proven, cycle after cycle, that it will grow, and it will make you wealthy eventually. And I think that that kind of mindset it's very lacking right now.
You're very right. Not just because I have two kids, so we've always been speaking with parents that when you give them a phone, and then when you take it
Mm.
from them, it's the withdrawal symptom. The
Yeah.
emotions become uh, very crazy, but then when they're always on their phone, they want things coming to them. Like a lot of them would say, when I turn on the normal TV channel, why are there ads? Why are there ads? I really don't want to see that. So it's not even just on that side of the things. Like you're saying, wealth creation is exactly
Yeah.
that too. Because and then the old place that I was in, a lot of the younger guys were basically saying to me, "Hey, Anson, you see this? I'm making this much on the meme coin. Wow, this one is growing." I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Mm.
yeah, this is actually something that should be fixed, but it's really a whole demographic behavior. It's definitely very hard.
Yeah, I don't know how you can turn it back though,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's like, I mean, I think maybe you and I grew up around the time where, the internet was just becoming a thing,
Yes.
right? So we still remember a time when there was no internet.
Yes.
And we remember a time when you had to look stuff up in the library, or you had to drive with a map
Yes.
in your in your car's glove box. Like, I don't know how long ago it was for you where you had to pull out a map and, like, try to trace the street that you
Yes.
are gonna
Like in
take
front
down.
of the windscreen. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Those.
yeah. So I mean, this was a while ago, but, like, you had to do stuff the old-fashioned way. And I'm not saying that that made us better people, but it made us more patient, I think, because we could kind of appreciate that certain things just take time. And whereas now the key word is on demand, right? Everything is on
Yeah.
demand. Video is on demand, and I guess learning is on demand because of ChatGPT and stuff like that. And to a certain extent, wealth is on demand if you're willing to take a bet on a meme coin, but there's also a chance that you lose everything, which is I don't know. I don't know, man. That doesn't sound like great financial wisdom. So,
Yeah, so even for this video after the replay, it's actually the clips that will actually get more people to watch the replay instead of the actual one.
yeah, well, case in point.
So, but with that said, I just want to tell you some of the statistics which I tell most of my guests. Majority of today's viewers are actually from the Philippines. So,
Oh,
thank you,
wow.
Luis, for sharing with the viewers. And then it's from the US as well. That's the second one. So yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm actually didn't think about asking you about the price at all. but,
Did you not? Oh,
but
wow.
since you raised it, but it's fine. We won't talk about that. But my last thing is for the new gen, especially with a lot of the Filipinos on the show. What
Mhm.
is something that you can tell them that you can impart is such a cliche word, but I can't think of a better word. Well, you can tell them that what's the last thing that you for this show to let them know that can add value to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's a lot of the Filipino crowd that have, you know, their first experiences with crypto. I'm just going to talk about the folks who joined in the last 4 years, right? So
Yeah,
their first experiences with crypto are either Solana meme coins, if they came in last year, or if it was 3 years before that, it was like Axie Infinity, play to earn games, stuff like that. So the main message I want to convey to these folks is that don't let your first interaction with crypto shape your entire journey with crypto,
yeah,
because there's still so much out there to learn. And, you know, for better or for worse, you probably didn't do all that well with either play to earn games or meme coins. But that is not the entire industry. These are corners of the industry. Don't let it shape everything. Like, don't let it shape your entire perception of how this industry works. There's so much more to it than that. So again, I advocate for patience. It takes time. And one of my favorite sayings is that, you know, you should stop timing the market, because what is important is time in the market, right? Just stick it
totally.
out. It will work out for you eventually. But don't let yourself get kind of, you know, don't hone in too much on one particular corner, because there's so much more out there, and there's so much more every passing week and month. There's so much more to learn. So just keep learning first. I think you will find your path eventually.
Thanks, Luis. I really love this talk, and for me, every single show with every guest like this one, I really learned a lot. So thank you so much, and I do hope that whatever endeavors at GCash and personally, if you need help, just let me know. So
Thank you, man. Thank you.
for the audience next week, we actually have another OG coming in, which is from Hong Kong, Dave Shin. I think you may have cross
Oh
paths.
yeah. Oh
Yes.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. Of course.
So
Yes.
he'll be talking about his stories. So yeah, so please do check my Linktree link and join the community. And thank you again. I will be seeing you guys next week. Thanks a lot, Luis. See
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Bye. Great ones.
Cool.